Don Fischer on board and Charlie Miller, guys. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good to see you.
You too, Don. Charlie, how's it going, man?
Well,
another busy weekend for you, I'm sure. We'll get to that. Don Fischer with us, the voice of the Hoosiers, of course. Indiana coming off of I don't know how else to describe it, just a thorough beatdown by the Ohio State Buckeyes. And it was just hard. I cannot imagine how hard it was you to have to continue broadcasting that game, Don, as it gets tougher and tougher, because it's your job to try to keep spirits up. And it's so hard to do in a game like that when you just know they're just getting whipped in every fashion.
Yeah, I guess that's the one thing that really concerns you most is that what has held up throughout this season has been the Indiana defense that's held them in ball games, kept them, given them an opportunity to win. And then in this ball game, that didn't happen. The defense got clobbered just like the offense did. And I'm going to look at this game as an anomaly for the defensive side of the football, just because they haven't showed that side of things all year long. And the defense, like I said, has been stout, has been perfect, but they've played well and they've kept Indiana in games when there was really no other opportunity, because the offense hasn't done a daggone thing all season long. And I say that not because they haven't been able to score, but they haven't been able to score much.
Yeah.
And they make a lot of mistakes. And the offensive line, and I guess everybody's so sick of me saying this, but the offensive line just isn't getting it done. And they have been that way since the very beginning. We can't run the football with any kind of regularity, and we certainly can't throw the football as effectively as it should be, because the pressure on the quarterback is consistently good by everybody, and it hasn't mattered who we faced, with the exception of Idaho and Western Kentucky. So I don't know what the answers are. I'm not a coach. I don't do X's and O's. I'm really glad that I don't, even though I'd like to make their money, but I don't want to have any responsibility other than that.
Not the stress.
Yeah. So, and I know Tom Allen is searching frantically to find the answers to this football team, but I'm not sure there are any at this point. And I guess the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train, we're hoping, but I think the light at the end of the tunnel is they're actually going to play some teams now in this last section of the season that are in their category. They're not superstar status ball clubs. They still have Michigan next week after Maryland, but after that, it's just teams like them. And hopefully that pays dividends. And somehow, some way, this week Indiana's got to find a way to beat Maryland, because it's a team that's struggling just like they are.
Yeah, Charlie, you probably had games where you got to flush that game, and that's exactly what Coach Tom Allen said in his post-game presser. We just got to flush this and move on.
Well, you also got to look at it, and Don, I think you said it best. Defense had the worst game they could have. But, I mean, can you really blame defense, because you're playing against a perennial top 15 team? And at the same time, you have a powerful drive. The first drive, you strike, then injury happens, right? So I'm not going to sit here and paint the picture of excuses, but, what happens if Jack is fresh? He doesn't get hurt. Because, again, you keep getting new looks at quarterback with people who are getting less than I can imagine first-string reps. And I think that throws off everything to me. I mean, a quarterback to me is like a coach on the field. But you're right. You have to flush it. You got to get ready for the next game, unfortunately. But I know it's probably hard. I mean, I can only imagine the coaching staff.
It seemed like Ohio State was starting in Indiana territory every time they got the ball. I mean, punting wasn't there. Every time I look up, I'm like, that's first and 10 at the 48 again. It's like, wow. So they didn't have to go very far, but they could go as far as they wanted to, unfortunately. They were able to really stretch out Indiana's defense.
Yeah, I mean, there was no section of Indiana's football team on Saturday that you could point to and say, there's a real bright spot. I mean, the only bright spot was the very first drive offensively. that Jack was able to take him down the field,
Right.
and they scored a touchdown. 2 unbelievably good catches by Peyton Hendershot before he caught the touchdown pass. And then Tuttle goes down with the injury. He goes out. Hopefully, I mean, that's the one thing we're hoping today that we find out is that Jack Tuttle's injury was not serious and that he can recover and he can maybe be ready to play this coming week. Whether that'll happen or not, we don't know. But the truth of the matter is this football team has been searching all year for their offense, and they have not found it yet. And I'm not sure that they're going to find it because you've got to win the trenches. You have to win the trenches. We had no pass rush on Saturday on the defensive side. That's the trenches. Those are the guys that you've got to be able to get in there and put some pressure on a quarterback. Stroud, I don't know that he ever – I think he got maybe flushed out of the pocket twice during the ball game, and both times I think he got flushed out. He completed passes. So pressure on the quarterback from your defensive line and an offensive line who can open holes and pass block. Those things they're just fundamental things that you've got to be able to do. And we haven't seen this team do that from that perspective all year long.
You know, Don, you talk about C.J. Stroud. I was watching his quarterback rating for almost the entire game. And for at least 3/4 or more of it, he had over a 200 quarterback rating, which is crazy. I was like, is that thing going to drop? Because 150 is pretty daggone good, but he was over 200 for almost the entire game. And it wasn't he was making great throws. It was just making the throws. It seemed like there were a lot of wide open receivers for some reason. I know Indiana's down on defense too, and that probably hurt and allowed him to do that.
Well, one thing you have to know about Ohio State, they're 3 receivers, and their tight end would make it 4 in this game because he had 2 touchdown catches and 3 or 4 catches on top of that. Their receiving core is maybe the best in the country, and I wouldn't say even maybe. I think they are the best in the country. All 3 of the guys that start, Olave, Garrett Wilson, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, those 3 guys are all going to be in the NFL, or at least they're going to get drafted. They're going to play. They're going to get drafted, and they will play at some point to prove themselves at the NFL level. But those guys are all guys that can absolutely fly, and they run great routes. And, you know, they got quarterback who can get it in their hands. So, like I said, I do think that the defense just had a bad game. I think this defense will respond. I think they'll be playing better this coming week. And they're going to have to, because the offense still looks like it's really shaky, and it doesn't look like it's going to have any major improvement as this season progresses at this point. We've had a body of work now that you can basically point to that tells you what we're looking at. And Tom Allen's got a lot of work in his hands. There's no question about that. This coaching staff has got to get these guys ready to play again. And right now, that's what concerns me most, the mentality of your football team. They obviously have lost confidence. The expectations were so high at the beginning of the year. And now it's a mind game. It's a mental game. And Bob Knight used to say 4:1, mental is to physical is 4:1. And he's absolutely right. And right now, this football team's in a funk mentally. And I don't know how you get them out of that unless you can provide some offense that will help this team try to bow up, so to speak.
Yeah, 128 total yards offense. I don't know how long it's been, Don, since I can't remember how far back I have to go that an Indiana offense was that unproductive. Even against Ohio State in all these games, they're usually competitive and of course the injuries play into this, but you've got to be prepared for that. And 128 yards, man, there's some probably non-conference teams that did better than that against Ohio State.
Well, here's the thing. If Jack Tuttle can't go, now you got Donovan McCulley, who's a true freshman. My phone's ringing. Don't let that bother you.
Yeah, well, we're good.
Donovan McCulley is a true freshman.
Maybe the next quarterback.
Well, he really struggled badly in this first half. You know, he looked like he was a fish out of water in the first half. But I will give him credit. He came back in the second half. He looked like he was more comfortable. He had calmed down a little bit. He was going up against one of the best teams in the country, as you know, and I thought he just did a much better job. But they didn't line the packages they worked for him to play in this ball game. Even if Jack Tuttle hadn't gotten hurt, they were all running plays, for heaven's sakes. This kid's got to be able to throw the football, and he's got to get that opportunity to throw the football. And I think he's very capable of doing that. So I put this on coaches. I think the coaches did not have him ready to go like they should have. And that's got to change. And I will bet money that we'll hear Nick Sheridan today say it was my fault that he wasn't ready to go, that kind of thing, because he tries to take the blame no matter what, because he did that when Michael Penix was struggling, and so we're going to hear that again today. The question is, all right, fix it in some fashion. You're going to have to fix it. So again, I think mentally right now is the biggest question mark in this football team. Have they given up the ship? And if they haven't given up the ship, then they got to prove that and they're going to have to prove it to themselves by coming up with a victory. And I think Maryland is the team that they can do that against, because I think Maryland is having the same kinds of problems that Indiana is right now.
Yeah, what you're hoping, if I can say this real quick, guys, what you're hoping is the experience. Let's on the positive side. The experience of all these games you've had, you've got your butt kicked, handed to you. Hope this has expanded the players and coaches' thought process going into this game, where you can now, those last week's experiences of playing all these top teams, let's go lay it out and put it all out against Maryland. And I think, Don, the game plan changed once Jack Tuttle got hurt. Sure. I think the game plan changed where we got to save face. Okay, he starts seeing looks he's never seen before. Now he's throwing out interceptions. Now it's even worse, right? So I'd rather take this beat down as a coach. Let me go to the presser and say it's on me, not get him ready, right? Not to let the young man take on this pressure, but moving forward, if he has to be that person, unfortunately lost his red shirt, right, as well, right? He was going to be red shirted, correct?
Well, you have 4 games you can play in.
Okay.
You have 4 games that you can play in. You can play the whole game. You can play 4 games. You can play all 4 games and still retain your red shirt. So he hasn't lost his red shirt yet.
Okay, good.
But he's played in 2 games.
Right.
And it looks like he's going to play in some more at this point. And probably he has lost the red shirt, because I'm sure at this juncture they feel like they have to have him ready, and they need to play him in games just to help getting him ready. So at this point, I think he probably has lost his red shirt, but he still has 2 more games. Here's the other thing. If Jack Tuttle can't play and this kid gets hurt, now Grant Graham on the field, and now you got a backup. You got a walk-on who's the quarterback, and a backup who's going to also a walk-on. There's a reason they're backups.
Hey, you got walk-ons playing. It's a beautiful story for them. But I understand for the faithfuls, it's not. I get it.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's be rough. At least Maryland has lost their top receiver, so that has hit their offense a little bit, and their defense efficiency has dropped to 12th in the Big Ten. So there, as you mentioned, there is light coming, and hopefully it's a turtle and not a train. But Indiana has to travel. I remember going there. It was maybe 4 years ago now. They went there and ended up losing there in a game.
Yeah.
But it's a time they have to stand up, like you said. They just have to bow up and get over, because this is a game they can win. And if they're going to win 6 games, there's no more margin for error. You've got 1 loss allowed from here on out. So you've got to beat the teams you're supposed to beat.
I guarantee you, the Maryland radio stations are saying the same thing about us.
That's
right. This is the game we can win. They're playing just as bad as us. They can pull this one out. They can turn it. I guarantee you, it is the same thing in Maryland on the radio stations. This is the get-right game.
There you go. Don, you and Coach Allen return to Southern Stone Restaurant this Wednesday at 7:05 for the coaches show, right?
Yeah, well, we're hoping that we don't have another electrical fire that puts us in a radio studio last week. Last week they had in the building, and I don't think it was in the Southern Stone Restaurant itself, because the building that that houses Southern Stone. There's another restaurant there. There's an office portion to the building as well. But they had some kind of a electrical fire that kicked all the alarms and everything on, and everybody had to file out. We didn't smell smoke. We didn't see smoke or anything like that in the restaurant at all. But we ended up having to do our show from WHCC studios in Bloomington. Rick Evans was kind enough to come in and help us get everything set up within about a 20-minute time span, because we were on the air. We were going to go on the air. Well, this happened about 20 minutes after 6, and we went on the air at 7:05. So we all had to make the trip over to the studios at WHCC, and it was a mess. There's no question about it. But we were able to get on the air, and hopefully we'll have no problems this week, and we'll be on at 7:05 with the coach at Southern Stone.
Can't wait for it, Don, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate having you here each week.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Good seeing you.